Thank you very much for the introduction of myself. I'm Nobuo Tanaka, former executive director of the IEA between 2007 and 2011. In fact, I have to thank Korean government for my election of the IEA executive directorship. It is a time of President Lee Myung-bak, and foreign minister at that time was Ban Ki-moon. And Korea is the first country who supported my candidacy to the executive director, and I cannot forget about it. I owe a lot to the Korean government, and I cannot refuse any kind of invitation like this to come and talk to the Korean friends and colleagues in the energy security issues. Let me talk about this energy crisis and climate crisis and winners and losers today. And how can Japan and Korea become winners together? That is my subject. IEA was constructed in 1973 oil shock. We are not prepared to any kind of supply disruption like this before. So creating the strategic stockpile of oil and prepare in case of emergency. IEA released stockpile 5 times in the history. The third one at the Libyan crisis was when I was the executive director. Fatih Birol, the current executive director, says we are in the first truly global energy crisis, not oil crisis, but energy crisis as a whole. Yes, but also IEA make a huge impact to the oil and gas companies and countries by releasing the document called Net Zero by 2050. If net zero happens, we don't need any new oil and gas development. This I call it the IEA shock to the OPEC or oil producing company. Because when net zero happened in 2050, the peak demand of oil should have happened already, and peak demand for gas would happen in 2-3 years from now. This is a huge impact for the revenue of the oil-producing countries. And I suspect that this document may force the President Putin of Russia to invade Ukraine as quick as possible. He may think that if peak demand of oil and gas happens so early, he should get Ukraine much before it happened. This is my speculation. I don't know if he read the book, but certainly this war in Ukraine created an energy crisis in Europe, as Ambassador mentioned, and its reaction to Russia. There are winners and losers. Russia is definitely the winner, a loser in the short term, in the long term. EU, I think, will be a winner because of REPowerEU and CBAM. CBAM is the carbon border adjustment measures forcing other countries to share the burden of decarbonization and de-Russianization of Europe. US is definitely a winner. In the short term, exporting huge amount of shale gas to Europe and Asia. And in the longer term, Inflation Reduction Act attracts huge investment into the United States, taking CCS and hydrogen and other projects. China, India trying very hard to be a renewable energy superpower. Saudi Arabia may be winner by using hydrogen or ammonia. Japan, Korea, I definitely think can be winners by using clean hydrogen as well as nuclear power. That is what I want to tell you about. Another winner of this game is user side. Sony, Japanese electronic company, must move out of Japan if they continue to sell to Apple, because Apple require renewable energy 100% of all their vendors or supply chains by 2030, much earlier than 2050. Maybe this may happen to the automotive sector, and this is much more substantial impact because subsidiaries and value chain is much bigger in auto sector. This energy infrastructure or transformation is driven by demand sector. This is a new feature of this transformation. I am from the Ministry of Trade and Industry and working for IEA, so I have a kind of supply side bias. We are thinking always from the supply side. But the reality is different. Change is driven by the demand side. So megatech firms or green steel company and green auto company could be the winner in the future. This chart shows oil and gas import reliance. The blue part is both importer of natural gas and oil. Green is both exporter. China import about 70% of oil and 40% of gas. In the future, 80% of oil and 50% of gas. You can easily see how vulnerable Japan and Korea are. We are at the 100% importer of gas and oil now, and in the future the same. So we are stuck in the right and top hand of the chart. US moves totally different direction. They are from brute, already exporter of gas, but sooner exporter of oil to the green part. So US interest is much closer to the oil exporter and gas exporter like Middle East, Russia, etc. President Trump made a deal between Mohammed bin Salman and Russian Putin when the oil price hit negative. Their interest is common. So how can Europe, China, India, or Japan, Korea be energy independent? Yes, one way is using huge amount of renewables, just that China, India, Europe is doing. But another way for Japan, if use of renewables is limited, definitely we have to import cheap and clean hydrogen and using vast amount of nuclear power. That is our survival strategy and the way to be winners. Japan and Korea made a great success in using gas. Golden age of natural gas came when I announced in 2011 in the New Energy Outlook. We started importing liquefied natural gas 50 years ago, and now it is commoditized. IEA says that peak demand of natural gas is coming soon, but gradually declining after, even the likely scenario. Golden age of natural gas is closing, but golden age of liquefied natural gas is continuing. The analogy of natural gas, liquefied natural gas, should be applied to hydrogen. How can we make the golden age of hydrogen? It is the way to provide the supply chain of hydrogen from Alaska, from US, from Middle East, from Australia, from Chile. There are different ways. One is liquefied hydrogen or MCH, methyl cyclohexane, or clean ammonia. Green, blue, clean, this is the subject of this forum, but we have to be colorblind. We have to have as much use of hydrogen as possible, regardless of color, and low carbon intensity should be the standard for the future. problem is that if hydrogen price from renewable is high, just as IEA analyzed for Japan, our steel price could be higher than other countries. The Korea could be the same. How can we get the cheap supply of renewable sources or hydrogen is the survival issue of steel corporations. They may move out of Japan or Korea searching for the cheap renewables in somewhere else. IEA, in its report, say the relocation of industries for renewables and low-carbon hydrogen, or CCS, will happen sooner or later, or it's already happening. Because demand for AI and data centers are moving up enormous speed. If there are not enough renewable energy domestically, data centers move out of the country, or steel industry may move out of the country. This is an issue of industrial competitiveness and industrial policy. Very serious problem for Japan as well as Korea. One way is connecting grid lines. Europe is doing a very successful connection of the grid lines and sharing the risk of sustainability as well as security. On top of that, Europe is building the hydrogen pipeline as a backbone. This dual network is a very smart idea of Europe. Asian countries, ASEAN power grid is in the plan. Our Masayoshi Son of SoftBank planned and proposed Asian super grids. Japan, Korea, and China or Russia and some other Asian countries must be connected in the grid line. This is a geopolitics and very important element for the collaboration between Korea and Japan. Kyushu Island has lots of renewables, but we have to stop because there are not enough connectivity. I urge Kyushu Electric Company to connect with Korea first, to use more renewables in both ways. Pipeline connection is discussed some time ago. Not gas pipeline from now. It should be discussed about hydrogen connection. Hydrogen pipeline connection could be the future for us. Henry Kissinger is the founding father of the IEA. He urged me when I was elected as an executive director, Mr. Tanaka, you have to get China and India into IEA. India requested full membership to the IEA in the last February's 50th anniversary of IEA. We'll see. This is another important survival game for the IEA because IEA needs India and China for the security of energy. But also, if IEA try to continue to be the sustainable or climate change player, we need these countries because they are the biggest emitter of the carbon dioxide. Trade of energy will change from now to 2050 if net zero happens. Oil will no longer be important trade article, but critical minerals and hydrogen could be. And hydrogen in MCH can replace the strategic stockpile of oil in the net zero scenario because they can be stored and transported in the regular oil tank and oil tanker. Let's talk about nuclear. Nuclear will play a very important role in the future. IEA agrees. And Japanese Prime Minister tried to restart 17 reactors by the end of last year, but we have only 12 restarted. Still many to go. IEA's net zero happens, the nuclear capacity must double to 2050, especially in China and emerging economies. In the COP28 last year, even countries say, let's triple the capacity by 2050. This is a very tough challenge. The cost of nuclear is cheapest when it is operating. Building the new reactor is very costly, but operating reactor is cheapest. So the choice of extending the life of current reactors is a very reasonable one. Japan make it possible from 40 years to 60 years, and like US in the future to 80 years. If light water reactor is used like that way, it may make sense. But this is a very interesting chart of energy transition by Václav Smil. He is the professor of Manitoba University in Canada. He argued that the speed of transformation is getting slower and slower. The coal replacing charcoal and reaching 5% sometime 1860. And took 60 years to reach 50% of the primary energy supply. For oil, it took 60 years to reach only 40%. Natural gas, only 25%. But what IEA's net zero for renewables is this green. Can we really achieve this fast transition by the renewables? This is what he's questioning. But the performance of nuclear power is unfortunately very poor. It is still 5, 6, 7%. Even by doubling it by 2050, the slope shows, unfortunately, nuclear is successful failure in the current paradigm. So I'm arguing we need the new narrative for the nuclear power. Sustainable nuclear power should be redefined. One is small modular reactor with passive safety. Second is the radioactive waste disposal issue and proliferation resistant, not making weapon out. I created at the Cannon Institute in Tokyo the panel only by women to talk about the future nuclear power and recommending the same 3 conditions for sustainability. Women are much more cautious and security-oriented and concerned about safety. So if these women can accept some models of nuclear for the future, maybe Japanese public, after the Fukushima accident, tragic accident of Fukushima, may accept the future model of the nuclear. By the way, the US people saying the flexibility of the nuclear is important, more small operation and using as hydrogen maker, etc. Integral fast reactor, which Korea is very interested in because of the reprocessing of the spent fuel, is the model for the sustainable future. TerraPower, ARC, GE Hitachi's PRISM, Oklo, these are the derivative of this integral fast reactor. It is developed in the Algon National Laboratory in 1960s, and it has a feature of proliferation resistant because it's a closed circuit and taking out minor actinide together with plutonium. And passive safety was proven by the 1986 experiment of loss of flow without scrum test. The same test like total blackout of plant like Fukushima was experimented actually in this plant and proven safe. And most important, by pyroprocessing, they can reduce the toxicity of the waste by number of folds. Spent fuel needs 300,000 years to reduce toxicity to the natural uranium level. Japan's reprocessing in Rokkasho will reduce it to 9,000 years. But if you use this technology, it is going to be reduced to 300 years. 300 years is long. but much better than 300,000 years. Maybe we can easily find the disposal site if we use this technology. That is exactly why Korea is interested in this technology and trying to develop it with Idaho National Laboratory for years. This technology can be applied to the meltdown debris of the Fukushima plant. I calculated how long will it take and how much it will cost. It's not a big amount of money, $3 billion US. Nuclear has a proliferation issues, geopolitics. How can Japan, Korea maintain the peaceful use of nuclear power for the sake of sustainability? This is a really, really heavy question. There is a chance. 3 summits. Your President Biden, Prime Minister met together in Camp David last year to go to the new geopolitics. This is a great opportunity. I think nuclear should be a part of this initiative. And US, Japan, Korea should develop this integral fast reactor and pyroprocessing. I support Korean pyroprocessing very strongly. In the geopolitical juncture, Korea should have the capability of separating plutonium, not weapon. I don't agree with the Korean public opinion of building a nuclear weapon. If Korea has a weapon, Japan will have a weapon. Taiwan will have a weapon. Everybody will have a weapon. And this is not a good story. I also propose Japan, Korea, and the United States should develop Northeast Asian AUKUS, developing the nuclear propulsion submarine together. UK, US, and Australia is doing in AUKUS. Why not building the Northeast Asian AUKUS? Not weapon, but propulsion, nuclear propulsion submarine. Another proposal to the 3 countries is denuclearizing North Korea. North Korea has 40 kilograms of plutonium in the weapon. 40 kilograms is so easy for Japan to burn in our light water reactor. At any time, we can do it. South Korea can take all the highly enriched uranium of North Korea and to use it, dilute it, and use it in the light water reactor you have. And helping US to denuclearize North Korea. I'm sure North Korea will not accept this kind of offer, but at least we can use our peaceful use against North Korea in a diplomacy. There are 50 more countries who has the weapon capability, but only 9 of them has a weapon. And unfortunately, UN Security Council is monopolized by the 5 weapon states. It's not fair. If UN is totally occupied by the weapon states, how could non-weapon states survive? Non-weapon states' best way could be to have the weapon, just as North Korea is doing. We need UN Security Council reform and get the representative of non-weapon states as a permanent seat holder. I am asking India to give up weapon and join this kind of move by signing the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear war, nuclear weapons. Because India tried to be a leader of global south. So best way to differentiate it from China is giving up weapon and ask to be a permanent seat holder with Japan, South Africa, Germany, or Brazil. South Africa is already the signatory to this treaty. Why not Japan and Korea become the treaty member to show our strong commitment not to have weapons. We will continue to have a capability to have a weapon, but show the strong political will not to have weapons. This is a way to convince other non-weapon states to maintain their status. Nuclear is necessary for the peace and civilization development. This is a famous quote of Takashi Nagai after the Nagasaki atomic bomb. How to turn the devil to the fortune. Maybe nuclear fusion may come. US is getting more serious about nuclear fusion. Now, in a COP28, they propose to have a joint work on fusion. There are small commercial fusion, not the big ITER project in Cadarache, France. It's happening in the US, in Canada, in UK, in Japan. So fusion in a new format may come. And if one of them succeed, I don't know which one, but if one of them succeed, it's a revolution for the energy supply. Yuval Noah Harari, the famous author of *Sapiens*, said that the 21st century human beings have three major challenges. The first one is a nuclear war. Second is ecological challenge, yes, climate change. The third one is tech destruction by AI and algorithm. And these are the global problems. And unfortunately, nationalism or populism cannot solve. So he argues that political leaders should have the global identity. Otherwise, we cannot solve this problem. And I strongly believe your President Yoon Suk-yeol is a unique president or leader with the global identity. I wish him the great success of making the peace. Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 고맙습니다. Thank you very much.